In the world of classical piano teaching, there's this notion that if you're a great teacher, you don't really continue to teach beginners anymore. You teach the advanced people, and that's a success. So when I started teaching, I thought that's what I would do. Like, I'll start with beginners because I didn't have students. But then once people know me, I'm only gonna take those who are good, those who are advanced. I thought that was success. But then I realized that at a very pragmatic level, that there's always more demand for beginners. So I switched my hat to a businesswoman, and I thought, okay, well, if I really want to do well in this business, I have to know how to teach beginners really, really well. So I went for it with all my might and all my zeal and resources. I went to like conferences, and I tried to learn everything about who was teaching beginners in what ways, different kind of methods, different kind of resources. I subscribed to many other teachers who were like beginner specialists, and I started like collecting all these resources and trying them out in my own lessons. And as I was really spending time into crafting the way that I was teaching the beginners, I started really enjoying it and loving it, because they're like blank slate. They have no idea what piano is. They don't understand simple things about like ups and downs, how rhythms work, how the finger numbers work, nothing. So I have to assume whenever I teach a beginner student that I am creating the world for them from nothing. You know, if you're like going to an art lesson for the first time, you know what a pencil is, you know what a paper is, and hopefully you know how to hold a pencil, you know what colors are. But when you're learning piano for the first time, you don't know like anything. You don't know what the key names are, you don't know what the parts are, you don't know how to read music. Everything is new. So as difficult as it is to explain all these fundamental aspects to start learning to play the piano, I found it exhilarating and challenging and fun, because I realized that I could do a really good job and I could help them fall in love with music and fall in love with piano and get them started from the right place. And some of them have gone to do that. And I always prided in myself that they will always have the option to become professional in music if they wanted to. That was my goal. And I saw that was happening. So I knew that I knew how to do this. And I was good at it. But making this into a pre-recorded video form was a whole nother thing that I couldn't get my head wrapped around. Because so much of what happens in a classroom, especially when you're working one-on-one with the student, it's so organic, it's so conversational, and you know, there's like magic that happens that I didn't think I could make it into a pre-recorded course. If you watch my last video that I talk about how I became a YouTuber from a private piano teacher, I talk a little bit about what I went through to transform into a content creator. So in a nutshell, for me to become the content creator, I had to grow. I had to break away my limited thinking about myself, about my resources, and about the world, about you, about having faith in the people who genuinely wants to learn and will put the time into it without having a live teacher with them. One of the things I knew about what happens when people try to learn to play the piano for the first time is that they latch onto the complex things, especially adults, too soon. Because there's a comfort in knowing, but it's all illusion. Actually, you have to focus on doing because we learn by doing and our intellectual ability grows with doing. So I decided to call it Simple and Beautiful Piano because I wanted to get people to be playing right away. I wanted to focus on how can they play with the limited knowledge they have. How can they start making music? And therefore, by doing, they're going to deepen their understanding. And I'm gonna help them, through that experience as their guide. I also put beautiful there because personally, I love music that just comforts you and that can speak to you into your heart, especially when things are difficult. I think that's the power of music. When you're down, it can make you joyful. And when you're sad, it can actually make you feel even sadder, like really amplify those feelings well too. By doing so, by going through that emotion and letting those emotions happen and accept it, there's joy that comes with it. So I wanted the experience to have those aspects, even though this is a course, because it shouldn't be that you wait for years and years to experience joy of playing the piano and feel something deep. I think students find that it's so surprising that they could play something that feels like a real beautiful, mature, and elegant piece within days if they were working on it regularly. I loved getting comments like, oh, I just played something pretty. I can't believe it. And those comments just made me so happy because when I created the course and I created the pieces for the course, that was exactly what I was trying to achieve on the other end, but I didn't have the proof until I got the proofs. Another thing is whenever I hear from students, I constantly ask do you understand what I'm talking about in the course? Do you feel confused? Is there anything that you feel like it hasn't been explained? And honest truth, I have not heard a single comment that says this is confusing and you're skipping steps. And I feel very happy for my students, and I also feel very proud because those were the parts that were really, that required self-discipline. I could jump steps, but I wanted to make sure that regardless of what their background was, that there was no question in their mind how to do what I asked them to do. I think another thing that students were surprised by is that I didn't teach adults for the longest time, and I have a video about that in my course, and I get quite a bit of comments from my students telling me thank you. I didn't have faith in teaching adults for the longest time because I got so wrapped up with teaching young children who's at 5 or 6, and I knew that I would have their attention for years, and maybe it was part of my own insecurity about running this business. But one adult, her name is Autumn, she changed my life in terms of really falling in love with teaching adults. She's still my student. And from that point on, she opened my world to teaching adults and this course, and how enriched my life is because of that. One of the first things I found out is that it's possible to have joy and happiness about playing the piano even as a beginner. One of the first really meaningful emails I got was in December of last year, 2 months after Simple and Beautiful Piano was launched from Sweden. And this student told me about just the challenges of life. It happens to everyone. Something difficult, something painful. And sometimes we just, struggle with finding light and joy and happiness and being able to just function in life like sleeping. And she told me that piano has brought her joy. I can't even express how I felt when I got that email. I just felt like if I did this for her, I'm happy. Another thing is that clarity is possible and progress is possible through this kind of format. I have a student, Rolf, in Germany, who corresponds with me quite regularly, and he tells me about his background in organ. Like, he comes with quite a bit of experience in music already, but this course has clarified a lot of things for him and helped him to go forward in his pursuit on the piano as well as the organ. I have other students who have had more musical experience. This student, Jeff, he went through this course in lightning speed. And the last time I talked to him, he was excited about taking his piano to the next level of playing more of jazz standard pieces. So we had a conversation about that. And then there's Sunshine, who brought sunshine into my life by regularly sharing about her experience of learning to play the piano and how she sensed the presence of her husband who passed away, who used to be a jazz pianist. And that piano has become a companion through her struggle with MS and depression. I wished that those things would be possible when I created the course, but I didn't know until someone told me that it is doing that. And I remember connecting with Rika, who's in Australia, and she wanted to play the piano all her life, and she tried different methods, and she finally found my method. And we just had this amazing connection, and she played my pieces for me on Zoom. And I just couldn't believe it, that this course is alive and it has its own life, that it's having these kind of effects in these students' lives all over the world. And I get to hear my own piece played by this person who found me on YouTube. And I say this to my private students a lot too. When you really embrace music and when you really play music, you know that it doesn't come from you anymore. And this is how I feel about my course. Yes, I created it, but it's also an other that is doing its own thing, and I get to enjoy it and I get to marvel at it. Last week, I went to see my oldest student, I think he's the oldest, 90-year-old student who's been playing the Black Keys, and he was playing songs and improvising on the Black Keys. That was amazing. Wow, I'm teaching piano to a 90-year-old man, and I never actually gave him a lesson in person, and he was playing. Lastly, one of the most meaningful things has been my mom. I didn't think she could actually learn to play the piano because I didn't think she was very patient, but she's patient and she's resourceful. And I learned about my mom is that she's a learner. She loves to learn, and that is something you have to be able to learn to play the piano. You have to sign up and commit and love the learning process. And that's something that I learned about my mom. And she plays my pieces. She has tears in her eyes, not because it's her daughter's piece, but because the music touches her. And she's so grateful that at age 78, that she's learning to play the piano. And this has brought a whole different dimension to our relationship. Sometimes she is scared of me. Those people who never get to meet me, you should be grateful that You don't see the wrath of Kristina. My mom does sometimes. But anyways, it's just been something that I didn't expect or imagine. This course has brought so many things to me personally, professionally, but also I know that it has done so much to the students who give their effort and love and attention and care to it. I want to thank you all for this first year. Can you believe it? It's only been 1 year. It's been an amazing adventure. And in a way, I just feel that this is just starting. I can't wait to offer you more things. I have things that I feel really excited about. And I can't wait to also connect with more of you. I'm just grateful for this opportunity to be able to connect heart to heart through music and through learning, through love of learning with whoever wants to be in this space. Live, love, piano.